मैंने स्टार्ट कर दिया।
यस।
नमस्कार फ्रेंड्स, वेरी गुड आफ्टरनून टू ऑल ऑफ यू। आप सभी का इष्टतली स्टडी सर्कल के इस वेबिनार में बहुत ही स्वागत है। फ्रेंड्स, वी हैव आवर गेस्ट स्पीकर सी एस सोमिल अग्रवाल जी। वेलकम जी।
थैंक यू।
थोड़े समय में हमारे अनदर गेस्ट स्पीकर डॉक्टर सी एस राकेश गुप्ता जी ज्वाइन कर लेंगे। ही इज ऑन अनदर मीटिंग।
अरे ये कैसे चेंज हो गया?
हमारे बीच हमारे फाउंडर कन्वीनर डॉक्टर सी एस अग्रवाल जी हैं। वेलकम सर, आपका भी स्वागत है। फ्रेंड्स, आफ्टर 1 फरवरी बजट ही हमारी पहली वेबिनार है एंड प्रॉब्ली हमने जो प्लान किया था कि आज हम केवल डायरेक्ट टैक्स डिस्कस करेंगे एंड देयर आफ्टर विल प्लान फॉर सम अदर टॉपिक लाइक इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स और कुछ और भी टॉपिक प्लान करनी है। तो जैसा कि आप सबने देखा है, पढ़ा है, कई जगह सुना भी होगा, बहुत ही मेजर शिफ्टिंग हुई है बजट में। एक कहीं ना कहीं प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो एक सपना था आत्मनिर्भर भारत या 5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी की ओर, कहीं ना कहीं बजट में बहुत सारी चीजें की गई कि हम 5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी को कैसे अचीव करेंगे, एक आत्मनिर्भर भारत की ओर कैसे जाएंगे, और कई सारी मेजर चीजें हुई। जैसे 35,000 करोड़ का इन्होंने बजट एलोकेशन कोविड वैक्सीन के लिए रखा था। आपका कोविड वैक्सीन के अलावा अगर आप शेयर मार्केट पे भी देखेंगे तो लास्ट 3 दिनों में कम से कम 3,500 पॉइंट से ज्यादा शेयर मार्केट में भी उछाल आया और टोटल एक्सपेंडिचर भी अराउंड 15% से ज्यादा ही है टोटल जीडीपी का। डायरेक्ट टैक्स में भी बहुत मेजर चेंजेस हैं, कई सारे। इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स में भी बहुत मेजर चेंजेस हैं। डायरेक्ट टैक्स में भी कुछ चीजों को रेशनलाइज किया गया, जैसे पीएफ वगैरह को टैक्सेबल किया गया एक सर्टेन परसेंटेज के बाद। कुछ चीजों में टाइम लिमिट कम की गई, जैसे असेसमेंट की, रीअसेसमेंट की। कुछ चीजों की टाइम घटा दी गई, आईटीआर रिवीजन की, वैलिडेट की। तो इन सब बातों की डिस्कशन करने के लिए और भी क्या रिलेवेंट पॉइंट है, तो आज हमारे बीच सोमिल जी हैं। थोड़ी देर में राकेश जी भी ज्वाइन कर लेंगे। तो फ्रेंड्स, प्रोग्राम की विधिवत शुरुआत करने के पहले आई वुड लाइक टू रिक्वेस्ट आवर फाउंडर कन्वीनर डॉक्टर सी दुर्गादास जी कि सर आप प्लीज प्रोग्राम की विधिवत शुरुआत करें। ओवर टू यू सर।
थैंक यू संदीप जी। देखो, विधिवत शुरुआत करने की जिम्मेदारी आप ही की है। मैं तो आपने इतना सम्मान दे देते हैं, इसके लिए थैंक यू वेरी मच। तो सीए संदीप शर्मा जी, कन्वीनर ऑफ स्टडी सर्किल, यंग एंड वाइब्रेंट सीए सोमिल अग्रवाल जी, एडवोकेट रादर यू कैन से। जैसा संदीप जी ने बैकग्राउंड दी कि ये बजट बहुत मायनों में डिफरेंट है। अभी 2 दिन निकले हैं बजट को और अभी स्टडी चल रही है कि क्या पॉइंट्स ऐसे हो सकते हैं। जैसे कि बड़ी खुशी हो रही थी कि 75 इयर्स प्लस को रिटर्न फाइल करने की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन क्लियर कट अगर पढ़ते हैं तो ऐसा नहीं है। बजट से पहले प्रधानमंत्री जी ने और उन्हें भी किसी ने कहा था कि ऐसा बजट होगा कि जो 100 साल में नहीं हुआ, तो वो कुछ इसमें नजर भी आता है। तो हमने पूरा 2 घंटे रखा है डिस्कशन के लिए। तो अभी सोमिल अग्रवाल जी हमारे बीच में हैं। आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत सोमिल जी। और पार्टिसिपेंट्स जुड़ते ही जा रहे हैं, 100+ हो चुके हैं, मैं समझता हूँ और भी जुड़ जाएंगे। और आज ये कोरोना और ये ऑनलाइन वेबिनार के फायदे भी हैं कि हम अपनी बात जो पर्टिकुलर है, क्वेश्चन आंसर आप उसमें चैट बॉक्स में डालिए, कुछ पूछना है तो। और बाकी मटेरियल बहुत जगह अवेलेबल है। राकेश जी भी और कहीं बिजी हैं, अभी उनका डेलिब्रेशन चल रहा है दूसरी किसी एसोसिएशन में, तो वो 4:45 5 बजे तक फ्री हो जाएंगे। मीनवाइल सोमिल जी हमारे बीच में हैं, तो एक एक करके जितने भी रिलीवेंट इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हैं, जो प्रपोजल्स हैं, बजट प्रपोजल्स रिगार्डिंग फाइनेंस बिल, डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस, तो वो सोमिल जी अभी डिस्कस करेंगे। तो मैं सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स का, सोमिल जी का, संदीप जी, आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत करता हूँ। जो इंटेंशन एक्सचेकर की है, गवर्नमेंट की है कि भाई 5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी बने हमारी कंट्री और हम भी उसके हिस्सेदार बने, और डेफिनेटली हमको बनना ही पड़ेगा। तो लेट्स स्टार्ट कि भाई हम इस बजट में क्या क्या देखते हैं। तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ सभी का स्वागत करते हुए वापस संदीप शर्मा जी को आगे बढ़ाएं प्रोग्राम को। थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड वेलकम टू ऑल।
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, friends, we have Somil ji. Friends, थोड़ा सा मैं बैकग्राउंड बता दूं. Somil ji is one of the most talented and young advocate जो प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं अभी हाई कोर्ट्स में, सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी जाते हैं. And apart from that, he is also a CA, CS, ICWA, and बहुत सारी डिग्रियां हैं. तो I am not going to take the names. और बहुत अच्छे स्पीकर हैं. And मैं देखता हूँ कि अगर इस टैक्स फील्ड में आप देखें तो ही इज गोइंग टू बी वन ऑफ द बेस्ट. तो ज्यादा समय नहीं लेते हुए आई एम जस्ट requesting Somil ji to please start his deliberation. Over to you, Somil ji.
Thank you, respected DD Agarwal sir, Sandeep ji. Thank you for your kind words and blessings. So, the Finance Bill 2021 announced on 1st February 2021. जैसा DD sir ने बताया कि मतलब we were expecting, we were the news, the information which was going around that it would be a budget which would be an unprecedented budget. So we have been seeing unprecedented things over a year now. This COVID-19 pandemic being one of the unprecedented situation that the whole country had to go through, the whole world had to go through, I would say. The Finance Act, the proposals, the amendments which have been proposed in this budget, to my mind, indicate the thought process, and the thought process looks more towards reforms, administration. So it's more towards tax reforms, tax administrations. I would say like faceless assessment was the changing point, then faceless appeals. And there has been since then a paradigm shift in the approach of the legislation. In that light only, we are seeing that the whole concept, things which have been there in the statute for over a decade, are now seeing the end in this proposed budget. Similarly, some things are seeing a beginning. So number of things are now coming to an end. Number of things are now seeing a new beginning. There is a complete paradigm shift in the approach, in the concepts of assessments and reassessments, which we'll discuss in a while. In that backdrop, I'll discuss some proposals. Now, as DD sir mentioned, the first thing which I will discuss is regarding that compliance burden, so-called, which is being said that the compliance burden in filing of return for the senior citizens has now been reduced. Now, in this speech, what we heard, what we saw was that, yes, it is a good thing. It felt, yes, senior citizens, 75 years or above, and they have only pension income. So the compliance burden is being sought to be reduced. But when we see the intricacies of that provision, now that provision requires, the conditions are the person 75 years or above during the previous year, income is only pension income, and there can be interest income, but that too from the same bank in which the pension income is being received. Now, once this is the situation of the assessee, then the assessee has to file a declaration to the bank, furnishing the information. And once the declaration is filed, and these banks would be specified banks which would be notified by the central government. Once the declaration is filed, then the bank will compute the income of the assessee in accordance with the provision allowing the rebate and everything under 87A, and will then deduct taxes. So the question that I ask is that if the person has to file a declaration, if such is the limitation that he can have only interest income from that very bank in which pension income is being received, then to my mind, this so-called compliance burden, which is sought to being reduced, seems to be an eyewash. if the person is required to file a declaration, this a person who only has a pension income and a simple interest income can easily file a single page return also. There's no requirement of going to the banks and everything to do all those declaration and all those things. But be that as it may, this provision has been brought out as a measure to reduce compliance burden. And if people find it comfortable, yes, for people of 75 age or above, and if they have only pension income and interest income only from that very bank in which the pension is received, then they can opt for this concept. They can make a declaration to the bank, and accordingly TDS would be deducted by the bank, and then they are not required to file the return. But sir, a word of caution I'd like to also add here is that in such cases also, if the assessee wants to have claim any refund, then obviously he has to file a return. So the effectiveness of this provision, to my mind, would not be much, in my humble opinion. Section 80EEA, which was introduced, which provides that assessees who purchase residential houses whose consideration does not exceed 45 lakh rupees, the stamp duty value does not exceed 45 lakh rupees, and they take loan for that, then reduction of 1.5 up to 1.5 lakh rupees was available under section 80EEA, although obviously there are certain more conditions on it. Now this provision provided that the loan sanction should be done between 1st April 19 to 31st March 21. So this date of sanction, the outer limit has now been extended to 31st March 2022. This is the amendment under section 80EEA with respect to the extension of date of sanction of loan for residential houses, affordable residential houses, stamp duty of value of which does not exceed 45 lakh rupees. Similarly, there is another extension of dates in section 80IAC. 80IAC is reduction in respect of eligible startups. Now, in this case, the date of incorporation of the startup, the last date, the bracket, the slab which was available was from 1st April 16 to 1st April 2021. Now, this outer limit for incorporation of the eligible startup has been now extended to 1st April 2022. And similarly, you may kindly recall section 54GB, wherein if in case of the capital gain on account of transfer of long-term asset, which if invested in the shares of the eligible startup, were eligible for exemption. Now, in that case also, the date of transfer, the outer limit has been extended from 31st March 21 to 31st March 2022. Now, we are all aware the real estate market, the situation with the real estate assessees. So there were a number of representation to help out, to boost the real estate market and all those things. In light of that, amendment has been brought under section 43CA. Now 43CA, inter alia with all those conditions, there was a safe harbor limit threshold available of 10%. That in case the residential unit has been transferred for a consideration which is less than the stamp duty value, then the stamp duty value would be deemed to be the full value of the consideration. However, if the stamp duty value does not exceed the consideration by 110%, then the consideration would be taken as the full value of consideration. So there was a safe harbor threshold of 10%. In light of the situation, to ease out, to boost the increase in sale of residential units, this threshold limit from 10% has been proposed to be increased to 20%. So if the stamp duty value of the residential unit does not exceed 120% of the consideration of the residential unit, then the consideration would be taken to be the full value of consideration transaction. However, now there are certain conditions to this. First, the transfer of the residential unit should be between 12th November 2020 to 30th June 2021. This time limit has been set for effecting the transfer of the residential unit. That is from 12th November 2020 to 30th June 2021. And quite surprisingly, in the end of this amendment, in the memorandum also, it is written the amendment will take effect from 1st April 2021 and will accordingly apply to AY 2021-22 and subsequent assessment years. Now, in my humble submission, the bracket which is available, that is from 12th November 2020 to 30th June 2021. All right, this period, so-called about 4 months, fall in assessment year 21-22, and the subsequent period falls in assessment year 22-23. There is no case of subsequent assessment year. So that seems to be an error, which though is not very magnanimous, but I wanted to point it out, that this amendment is only applicable to the assessment year 21-22 and assessment year 22-23. However, this doesn't seem to be any logic why this date of 12th November 2020 has been laid down in this provision. There is no apparent speaking reason for that in the memorandum also. The second condition given is that this transfer should be by way of first allotment to the buyer of the residential unit. The consideration of the residential unit does not exceed 2 crore rupees. Now, I would like to read the definition of residential unit given in this provision. That is there in clause 10 of the finance bill. So, for the purpose of this section, residential unit means an independent housing unit with separate facilities for living, cooking and sanitary requirement, distinctly separated from other residential units within the building, which is directly accessible from an outer door or through an interior door in a shared hallway and not by walking through the living space of another household. So one sentence without any full stop, without any comma, and this is the definition of the residential unit. This shows the overcautious approach that has been taken while drafting the legislation. So from 12th November 2020 to 30th June 2021, in case of transfer of residential units, the safe harbor threshold limit has been increased from 10 to 20%, is proposed to be increased, and the conditions that the consideration should not exceed 2 crore rupees, that this should be a first time allotment to the buyer. Similarly, consequential amendment has been made under section 56(2)(10) also, wherein in case of the recipient, the buyer, the threshold limit in such cases has been increased from 10% to 20%. Now, coming to this provision, the so-called rationalization of the provision relating to tax audit. Now, we all are aware, you may kindly recall, Section 44AB provided in the proviso that in case of cessees carrying on business, where they carry out their transactions of receipts and payments, and the aggregate of receipts and payment by way of cash does not exceed 5% of the total aggregate payment and receipts. In such cases, the threshold limit of 1 crore of 44AB was increased to 5 crore. Now, there is a proposal that in such cases, to further incentivize the digital economy and to further so-called reduce the compliance burden on the taxpayers, this limit of 5 crore in these cases where there is digital transaction, the cash transaction do not exceed 5% of the total expenditure or total receipts, is being proposed to be amended and increased to 10 crore rupees. Now, the so-called object is to promote digital economy and to further reduce the compliance burden. The question I'm asking to myself is that is the tax audit report only about this? What about the compliance, the various provisions such as say 40AIA, the deduction of TDS? The payments are being made through bank. The person does not deduct TDS. That is not being reported. What about the compliances of 43 capital B? The payments which are required to be made before the filing of returns so that the amount shall be allowed as expenditure. Similarly, 36(1)(3), the interest being paid for the purpose not which is not for the purpose of business. So the human service which the tax auditor professionals were giving while filing, which are being given while filing the tax audit report, where all these provisions are examined, and all these things, all these violations or details are reported by the tax auditor. Now they want to give it a go by, and on merely on the basis when once the transaction are being done through banking channel, once they feel that the digital economy is sufficient enough, if the transactions are through bank, then there is no requirement of tax audit. To my mind, it's this proposal needs serious reconsideration, because for this tax audit report being limit being increased to 10 crore rupees, obviously in cases in digital where payments are being made through banks and all. So to my mind, doesn't seem to me a very with utmost respect a logical concept. Similarly, like 41(1), where the cessation of liability, remission of liability. So all these things which are reported in the tax audit reports, and which becomes a very good base for the even for the assessments and reassessments by the department. Now it is being sought to be removed as a measure to reduce the compliance burden for the taxpayers. Now, as I said in the beginning, the whole thought process of the department of the legislation is changing, and to my mind, the whole concept of assessment reassessment is being done on information driven basis. Now this proposal that the tax audit report, the threshold is being increased to 10 crores, to my mind indicates that the information which is being available, which is available with the department by way of specified financial transactions being reported at 285 BA, information being provided by other law enforcement agencies, information available to the department through AIR information from the various authorities. So this data mining, this information which is being received by the department, to my mind, they feel it seems they're quite confident that that is sufficient enough to take care of the non-filers or lack of filing in the returns. So legislation in their wisdom have thought that they can do away with the tax audit reports to the threshold turnover of 10 crore rupees is something indicates me towards the extent of information which they are able to collate, and which is being sought in times to come being shared to the with the taxpayers also through 26 AS. Now, similarly, in section 44 ADA, the presumptive taxation regime for professionals, in that a small clarification has been brought, wherein they have clarified that it is not applicable in case of the limited liability partnerships. And the reason behind it has been given that the LLP Act requires statutory audit, and therefore the LLPs were never intended, and accordingly it has been clarified that under the 44 ADA regime, the LLPs are not covered for opting the presumptive scheme. Now the next proposal, sir, dividend income. Now dividend income, once declared, then it is being received by the assessees. There was an issue that under 234C, with respect to the payment of installment of advanced taxes. Now, under the first proviso to subsection 1 of 234C, there are certain exclusions given on which the interest under section 234C is not applicable in case the amount of advance tax has been paid in the subsequent installments of advance tax. Now, in those exclusion, another addition has been made, and that is in respect of dividend income. dividend income other than 222E. That is deemed dividend under 222E that has been excluded. Other dividend income shall be included in that exclusion list. So this installments would be governed from the date of declaration of the dividend by the company declaring the dividend. Prior to that, this interest on 234C will not be levied, and once the amount of advance tax has been paid in the subsequent installments of the advance taxes. Now, section 139. Section 139, we all know, provides about filing of returns, the persons who are required to file the returns, and lays down the time limits for filing of the return. Further, revised return, belated return, and other provisions. Now, in this provision, we are all aware, section 139, subsection 4 and 5 provides for belated returns and revised returns. Revised return in case of discovery of any omission or wrongful statement. So 139, 4 and 5 provide for belated and revised returns. The time limit which was prescribed was 1 year. So that was up to the end of the relevant assessment year. So for the assessment year, up to the end of the relevant assessment year, the assessee could have revised the returns. However, the amendment has now been brought in these sections, and it has been provided that the returns, the belated return or the revised return, could be filed 3 months prior to the end of the relevant assessment years, or before the end of the completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. So the belated returns or the revised returns can now be filed. The time limit has been reduced by 3 months. Now, in case of companies, in case of assessees partners who have tax audit firms, in case of companies or assessees who are required to file report under section 92E, so those are already filed till 30th November. So they now get only 1 month to file their revised return. Similarly, in case of companies or assessees who are required to file the return by 31st October, they get now only 2 months to file the revised returns. So overall, the revised returns and the belated returns have now been reduced. The time limit has been reduced by further 3 months and will be filed 3 months prior to the end of the assessment year. Sir, the company assessees who are required to file report under section 92E in respect of the international transaction or the specified domestic transactions, the date of filing of return is 30th November. Now, there was an anomaly that the partners of such firms, they could file return up to 31st October. So to bridge that lacuna, now it has been provided that the partners of such firm also can file the return up to 30th November. In TP cases, transfer pricing matters, wherein report is required to be filed by the assessee company, assessee firm under section 92E. This time limit which is being reduced, now the reason behind it, the whole concept, as I said, the transformation is on the lines of the technological advancement. Faceless assessment, faceless appeals, the availability of data, the information being received through SFTs being filed online, and all those information that are being received. So the concept, the idea behind is that the time which is being required, which is required to process, time which is required to examine, and time which is required to file all these things, further time which is required to file the documents or revision. So there is a I would say substantial reduction in the time required, and accordingly in all these situations the time is being reduced. So accordingly, the first step, the return filing or revised return or belated returns have been reduced by 3 months. Now another rationalization, sir, the employee's contribution to ESI and PF. This has been a matter of litigation for a number of years. Section 224 clause 10 under the definition of income provides that the amount received by the employer from the as employee's contribution shall be treated as income. Now 36 subsection 1 clause 5a provides for deduction for the employer with respect to the employee's contribution towards ESI and PF fund if the amount is paid by the employer within the due date specified as per the ESI PF Act, read with notification or circular or standing orders within that act. So the deadline which is provided in the ESI PF Act, that is 15 days from the close of the month in which the amount is deducted by the employer, though in the ESI PF Act itself, the language is not very clear and the interpretation is that the amount is to be paid within 15 days from the close of the month in which the amount is due to the employee and when the amount is deducted. So ESI PF Act 15 days has been provided from the close of the month, and this date has been incorporated by way of explanation under section 36(1)(5)(a). Now another explanation has been added for the purpose of removal of the doubts. It is clarified that section 43B shall not be applicable in case of the employee's contribution. Now the rationale behind this amendment, the reasoning behind this amendment as we see from the memorandum to the finance bill is that various judicial pronouncements have held that 43B time limit on employees' contribution as well. So that thing has been sought to be clarified in this explanation that 43B was never intended, it is clarified, never intended, it is not applicable in respect of the employee's contribution. This has been provided in this explanation, and similar amendment has been made under section 43B also. Another proviso has been added and it has been provided that this 43B shall not be applicable on employee's contribution. Now various judicial decisions had held that employee's contribution is for welfare of the employees, is similar to employer contribution. And I remember in the decision of Honorable Delhi High Court in the case of Emil, now in that case there were a couple of more important arguments. One, that the ESI PF Act, that is the Parent Act itself, provides for condonation of delay. It provides that the amount, even if paid with delay to the employee's account in the ESI PF fund, there are checks and balances in respect of, there are checks for, there is levy of interest, there is levy of penalty, and there is adequate compensation which is available in that provision in the ESI PF Act. So once there is adequate compensation which is available there, so this idea that for the welfare of the employees contribution, you are deducting that amount from the employee, it is not comparable with the employer. The employer contribution is in the fiduciary capacity, which is the employer has to pay, but you are taking that amount from the employee and you are not submitting, it is a case of unjust enrichment to the employer. Now once the ESI PF Act itself provides for additional compensation, itself provides for interest, itself provides for penalty, then where is the question of unjust enrichment? So when the Parent Act itself provides for this provision, provides for delay and allows delay by way of compensation, then in this situation, there is by completely disallowing the deduction merely because of there is a delay of say even a single day, I lose the deduction forever. It is a business expenditure, there is no doubt about it. So to my mind, this provision is a little harsh, but be that as it may, now the legislation in light of the complete litigation which has been going on has now sought to clarify that 43B is not applicable. Another issue which I want to raise is that till now courts, majority of the decisions from various honorable high courts and even the Supreme Court in Rajasthan spinning weaving judgment, although it is a case of SLP dismissal, but the position was that employees' contribution, even if being paid till the due date of filing of return, will be allowed as deduction. Majority view has been taken. Now, this amendment is a clarificatory amendment for removal of the doubt. Another issue of litigation which would come is now that it would be sought to be applied retrospectively. Now, something which has been held by the courts till now, and this amendment now being brought is something which I believe which was not called for. There was no need to unnecessarily create more confusions on this note. They could have very well, all right, from now onwards, we say that this would not be applicable. It has to be paid within the due date of the ESIPF Act. Way forward, yes, no deduction would be allowed. But there was no point of getting into the retrospectivity of it by making it as a clarificatory amendment. Sir, in the judgment of Elom Extrusion, Honorable Supreme Court, and in the judgment of AML also, their lordships have even gone to the extent of saying that once the arguments were also raised, and they have been noted in the judgment, that once the amount is paid, is taken by the employer, and it is treated as the income of the employer, then it is this amount is as good as a deduction which is being available to the employer on payment. So this can be equivalent to the 43B employer contribution as well. Once you have treated it as income, and if I'm paying it by the due date of the filing of return, I'm getting an expenditure deduction. This due date, and on these lines, that due date of 43B was read into it as a measure of relaxation, as a measure of purposive interpretation, I would say. But in light of this proposed amendment, it has been clarified that if the employee contribution to PF ESI is not paid within the due date of ESI PF, then sir, the deduction will not be allowed. Now, a new provision, Section 245 MA, has been introduced. Dispute Resolution Committee. Not very different from Dispute Resolution Panel, but now Dispute Resolution Committee. A committee is being formed which would be seized with settlement of disputes. This committee, the encouragement, the idea behind it, to my mind, is encouraged by the success of the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. Now this dispute resolution committee will be constituted. The scope of this committee, the cases where returned income is 50 lakh or less, and the aggregate of the variation proposed is 10 lakh or less. Now, if this is the situation that the proposed variation is 10 lakh or less, on that the tax liability on a broader idea is 3.5 lakh at best. So for this amount, they have now constituted a dispute resolution committee, so-called for small taxpayers and medium taxpayers, for quick resolution. The committee will have the powers for reducing or waiving the penalty or giving immunity from prosecutions. Now, to my mind, you kindly recall, we all are aware, Section 270 AA was recently introduced along with the new penalty regime under Section 270 capital A, which is effective from assessment year 17-18. Now, 270 AA itself provided for immunity from penalty and prosecution in cases where it is a case of simpliciter under-reporting of income. Obviously, the cases of under-reporting of income in consequence of misreporting of income are out of the purview of 270 AA. So already there is a mechanism of granting immunity under Section 270 AA. Now, by forming this committee, to my mind, doesn't seem there does not seem to be much of benefit. And further, there is another restriction that the specified orders which are covered under this which are eligible for this dispute resolutions committee, the search cases have been excluded. So it is only small and medium taxpayer tax cases wherein the variation proposed is up to 10 lakh rupees and the returned income is 50 lakh or less. So effectively, how much this committee is going to be effective, efficacious, we'll see in times to come. But prima facie, it seems that the situation that we see with respect to the dispute resolution panel, the way it, with utmost respect, it has been a disappointment, it has been a failure. Similarly, I believe this dispute resolution committee would not be very useful, in my humble submission. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, number of things are coming to an end. Few things are seeing a new beginning. So DRC, the Dispute Resolution Committee, has now been brought on the statute, is being proposed. Now, authority for advance ruling. Authority for advance ruling, where the application can be made by the SSC to get the advance ruling in, although the names itself suggest to get in advance. However, this authority has been almost defunct for a long time. The purpose was to reduce litigation, was to give rulings in advance so as to remove ambiguity. And the order of the AAR was binding on the applicant and the department in respect of the application itself. Now it has been proposed that the authority for advance ruling will be discontinued and it would be substituted by a board for advance ruling. So R is now being replaced by BAR. The committee will consist of 2 members, not below the rank of chief commissioners. And one of the reasons which has been given in the memorandum for discontinuing with the authority for advance ruling current concept is that the authority AAR had 3 members, out of which one would be the chairman and the other benches were donned by the vice chairmen, and these were the retired Supreme Court and High Court judges. Now, since there was delay in appointment of the members and since the benches would not function in absence of any of these members, therefore there was the issue of delay in disposal of the petition. There was a major delay, major pendency with the authority for advance ruling, and therefore to do away with that, to bring the advance ruling in line with the object, with the purpose with which it was constituted, accordingly the authority for advance ruling is now be substituted by board for advance ruling. Now, sir has joined. Now the board for advance ruling, earlier the authority for advance ruling, the decision was binding on the applicant and there was no appeal prescribed for it. The only remedy which we had was writ, constitutional remedy. But now this board for advance ruling, the decision is not binding and appeal has been provided. Appeal can be filed to the Honorable High Court within 60 days of the communication of the order, and appeal can be filed by both assessee as well as department. And this board for advance ruling will come into effect with from the date being notified by the central government. Now, sir, there has been a major overhauling of the reassessments and search assessments. As I said, the assessment, reassessment, the intent, the idea behind it is all information driven, and that is all spelled out in the memorandum as well. So the department is able to collate information from various specified financial statements of financial transactions being filed under 285 BA, the information from various enforcement agencies, information from AIRs, and With all this data available with the department, now the whole concept of assessment reassessment has come out to be information driven. Now, the earlier, the concept of 153A, the chapter of 153A, 153C assessments has been given, have been brought to an end. We all are aware, sir. Earlier, we used to have the block assessment system. From 1996 to 2003, the block assessments were done. There was enormous litigation, there were issues, and to end that era, the concept of 153A, 153C assessments were brought in 2003, with the intent that this whole litigation, the highly litigation prone assessments of such assessments will be reduced. However, the experience, it seems, has been again of the same block assessment, and accordingly, this provision of 153A, 153C has now seen the end of the searches, the surveys, the requisitions which are made on or after 1st April 2021 have now been brought in the concept of reassessment under section 148. So 153A, 153C assessments will be done for the searches, requisitions made up to 31st March 2021. A new provision has been introduced, section 148 capital A. Now 148 capital A, the provision provides that before issuing notice under section 148, the assessing officer will issue a notice under 148A proposing the issuance of notice under 148, proposing the reassessment, and will seek reply from the assessee. The opportunity would be given. Not less than 7 days, up to 30 days would be given to the assessee, subject to further extension to be allowed by the assessing officer. Assessee will file reply, and within 1 month from the end of the month in which the time limit for filing the reply or the extension or the reply received by the assessing officer ends, the assessing officer will pass the order and then will go forward for initiating reassessment by issuing notice under 148. Now you would kindly recall, sir, especially in the cases in which AIR information has been received on account of cash being deposited in the bank accounts, or property has been sold by the assessee, or property purchased, investment has been made by the assessee. You would kindly recall in all these cases, we used to get those verification letters. Number of times the question was asked that what is the veracity, what is the legality of this verification letter? And I remember the judgment of Honorable Amritsar Bench of Honorable Tribunal in the case of Amrik Singh, after discussing number of various provisions in which notices are issued by the assessing authorities, assessing officers under the Act, they held that this verification letter has no legal sanctity. And therefore, even if the assessee does not reply to this verification letter, nothing can be read out of it. And you would kindly recall in the reassessment, the reasons recorded by the assessing officers, they used to write that since the assessee has not replied to the verification letters, it is presumed that the assessee has nothing to say in the matter, and therefore there is a reason to believe that income has escaped assessment. And therefore the judgments, the judicial pronouncements came that merely on this ground that the assessee has not replied to the letter, which itself is a non-est letter, which has no legal sanctity behind it, this reason to believe cannot be made. Now, to my mind, this section 148 capital A, information is being received by the department. Before issuing 148, verification can be made and notice under 148 capital A can be issued and reply can be sought. Although we haven't seen till now the cases where assessing officer on receiving objections to reopening or proposed reopening has dropped the proceedings. But in view of the transparency, the honoring the honest concept, the whole transformation of the thought process of the way assessment, reassessment have to be carried out. So if the information which is being filed in response to these notices is satisfactory to their, if the investment is being made and the evidences are placed, or if the amount which is deposited in the bank is properly explained, then they may not proceed for issuing 148 notices. So that verification letter, to my mind, has been given a legal sanctity by 148 capital A. And before issuing 148, they can examine the issue, and if they feel that yes, the SSC has justified the amount, as there is no exposure of any income being escaped assessment, then they may drop the proceedings. Another aspect which I find in this provision is that what would be the situation of raising objections? Now, is the assessee required to raise objections within this, in response to this 148A notice only? Or whether even after issuance of 148, to my mind, legal arguments, objections, there cannot be any waiver to it. But to my understanding, 148A notice asking the assessee that, see, this is the information, and there is a proposal for issuing 148 for the income escaping assessment. And to my understanding, the objections should be placed in 148A notice reply itself. Another reason for this is, sir, that once the assessee files the reply in response to 148A notice, the assessing officer will pass the order. And to my mind, this order can be said to be equivalent to the order disposing the objections which we used to have in 148 proceedings. And against this order, till now I could not find any provision for filing of appeal. And again, the writ can be filed against the order. This order disposing the so-called objections of the assessee. So another error. Prior to issuing of 148, the assessees can seek remedy from the jurisdictional high courts. Now, sir, in case of search, survey, and requisitions of books, other documents, or any valuable asset, money, bullion, jewelry, in these cases, it is being deemed that the income escaping assessment would be deemed for 3 years preceding the year in which search is conducted. So the search year as well as the 3 year preceding that year would be reopened under section 148. In these cases, 148 capital A provision will not apply. There will not be any verification, any letter that we are proposing any 148 notice. This is provided under section 148 capital A. So the earlier time limit which we used to have in search cases of search year plus 6 years prior to the search year, which were mandatorily reopened, in this case, now in this regime, the search year as well as 3 years prior to the year in which search is conducted. Further, under section 149, in time limit, to go beyond 3 assessment years, up to 10 assessment years, if there is evidence, information in the possession that reveal escapement of income, likely to be more than 50, likely to be 50 lakh or more, then they can go up to 10 years. So the whole concept of search assessment has been brought to an end, and under section 148, the year of search, then 3 years which will be deemed, and further 3 to 10 years, then this requirement has to be fulfilled. Now this approval which is to be taken under section 151, this provision has been amended. Up to 3 years, the approval is to be taken from principal commissioner. And for 3 to 10 years, the approval has to be taken from principal chief commissioner or principal CCIT and counterparts. Now this, sir, when the amendment was brought by Finance Act 2012 in respect of the 16 years in respect of undisclosed income of foreign assets, foreign income, you would kindly recall there were issues wherein assessment years prior to AY 56 were reopened. Now the issue with that arose that whether the assessments which were time barred on the date on which amendment was being brought are being sought to be reopened now. And Honorable Delhi High Court in the case of Brahm Dutt held that the assessment which have attained finality which are time barred on the date on which the amendment has been brought, that amendment was effective from 1st July 2012. And therefore, up to AY 56, the assessment, the reassessment, the time limit had gone. Now, in this case, it has been already provided in the proposed amendment that years which are already barred by limitation on the date of the amendment, these will not be covered within the amendment of 3 to 10 years. Those cannot be reopened. Now, sir, the 143.2 time limit has been reduced. Earlier, the time limit was 6 months from the end of the financial year in which the return is being filed. Now that has been again reduced by 3 months, and the now limit is 3 months from the end of the financial year in which the return is filed. Similarly, the time limit for making the assessments has been reduced from 12 months from the end of the assessment year to 9 months from the end of the assessment years. So this time limit being reduced, this reduction in light of the technological advancement, in light of the data being available, in light of the issue-based assessments which we are now seeing, that they already have the information. They want to ask you on specific issues. They will raise the issues and take the information. So it will not be the earlier conventional concept of sending you 40, 45 points and then making the holistic assessment, finding the issues during assessments. To my mind, on the basis of the information already available, the data mining, the risk management strategies that they already have, on that basis, now the revenue will conduct issue-based assessments, and therefore the time required for all these things, to my mind, and accordingly, which is evident from the reduction of time limit also, is less, and accordingly time limits are being reduced. Now the last amendment which I would like to discuss is regarding the faceless appellate tribunal. Sir, we have seen recently the arena of faceless assessments. We are going through the faceless assessments being conducted. Now, faceless appeal was brought in on 25th September 2020. And in light of the technology, the elimination of physical interface, the optimization of resources, dynamic jurisdiction, in all these touchstones, the concept is now being extended to the faceless appellate tribunal as well. Sir, with this, I'll request sir to take it forward, and I'll thank everyone for the patient hearing. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Somil.
Welcome, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, Didi sir. Thank you. So should I begin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
So I will pick up the thread where from the Somil has, left the faceless.
Yes, sir. हाँ, इसको थोड़ा सा ये 3 साल 5 साल वाला थोड़ा सा और elaborate करो, sir.
हाँ, नहीं मैं करता हूँ मैं भी. हाँ. Now everything has become faceless, and whatever has not become faceless will become faceless. That seems to be the indications. Coming from the finance bill. Faceless assessment, faceless appeal, first appeal, faceless penalty, and now tribunal also seems to be going the same way. अब जो रहता है इस इनकम टैक्स एक्ट का नाम बदलकर ही फेसलेस इनकम टैक्स एक्ट करना चाहिए. There are several proposals in this finance bill, और वो उसमें से many of the proposals are the disposals. Not merely the proposals. And you must have read, obituaries. When somebody is dead, then obituaries are published in the newspaper. So this finance bill writes obituaries for at least 2 institutions. Income Tax Settlement Commission, and Authority for Advance Ruling. And I mean, as I would proceed, then we will see, I mean, the amendments which are proposed in the Finance Bill. Finance Bill now seeks to address the reforms in the direct tax system through tax incentives, through removing the difficulties faced by the taxpayers, and the rationalization of certain provisions. Tax incentives. Now, if we start reading the tax incentives, then many of us may not be of any interest to most of us. Removing the difficulties faced by the taxpayers. When we will come to those difficulties, then we will find that certain proposed amendments are increasing the difficulties, what to say of solving the difficulties. And the third segment is the rationalization of the various provisions. I mean, that suggests as if the earlier regime was irrational. So we will take up first of all those amendments which are proposed to remove the hardships of the taxpayer. और उसमें सबसे पहला जो जिक्र मैं करना चाहूंगा डीडी साहब कि सीनियर सिटीजन्स के लिए, सीनियर सिटीजन भी सारे नहीं, a particular segment of the senior citizens imagined problem now is sought to be taken care of by the proposed amendment by providing that they are not required to file return of income. Now, filing or not filing of return of income, I mean, is not such a big thing, but then it has been made out in the proposed amendment as if, I mean, this is, I mean, too much a big issue. But then nothing comes for free. The conditions after conditions which have been attached, and at the end of those conditions, that senior citizen now would think is better to file. So the first condition, of course, is there that he should be of 75 years or more. So those senior citizens which are of 60 years to 74 years, I mean, they will have to continue to file their return of income. The second condition, that he should have only pension income. He should not have any other income. The only other income he can have is by way of interest income. And that too from this very bank in which from which he receives pension. So if he happens to receive interest from some other bank, then also he is out of this scheme.
और सीनियर सिटीजन तो पोस्ट ऑफिस में भी रखते हैं सर. सीनियर सिटीजन तो पोस्ट ऑफिस में भी रखते हैं ना.
Yes, yes. So he must have pension income. He should not have any other income. If at all he has to have any other income, then that income should be in the form of the interest income, and that too from the same bank from whom or in which he receives his pension. Then this bank also cannot be any bank. It should be a specified bank. The board will notify and which banking companies are the specified banks. And then if all these conditions are fulfilled, then he will have to go to the bank to file a declaration. That declaration will consist of certain particulars. So then senior citizen, I mean, may be constant to think यदि उसने declaration ही भरना है, particulars ही देने हैं. तो मेरा तो बड़ा set chartered accountant है, let him continue to file the return. So he has to file a declaration containing such particulars which may be prescribed by the board, and thereafter the bank will assume the role of the tax return preparer, will compute his tax liability. After allowing him the deduction under chapter 6A, after giving him the rebate under section 87 capital A, and in that situation and thereafter, then such a senior citizen is not required to file his return of income. But then if there is any deviation from any of these conditions which I just listed, then he is outside. I mean, he is not entitled to avail the so-called benefit which is sought to be extended by removing the so-called hardship of such senior citizen. So if He has to, if he has got some rental income, if he has got some interest income, as DD Saab has told that he deposits money in post office, and that fear, the way the banks have failed, I mean, is not unreal. And that is why they want to keep their funds in post office and earn interest thereon. So he will have to meticulously ensure the compliance of these conditions one after the another. If he has got some house property income or some capital gain income, howsoever minuscule that income, howsoever small that income may be, then he will not be entitled not to file the return of income. This is the removal, or the so-called removal of the difficulty being faced by a section of the senior citizen as perceived by the government, and that is how this proposed amendment is there. Next difficulty, in view of this pandemic, now because of the accumulation of the unsold inventory at the end of the real estate developer, now has been felt by the government. Good. Government wants to boost the real estate sector also. But then whether this removal of the so-called difficulty to the real estate developer and the corresponding buyer now is going to boost the real estate sector in any big way, that is a question on which we will deliberate. So we all know there is section 43CA which says that if there is a real estate developer transferring land or building or both for a consideration which is less than the stamp duty value, then stamp duty value shall be deemed to be the full value of consideration. But then there is one proviso which says that where the stamp duty value is not more than 10% of the actual consideration received, then the actual consideration received will be treated as the full value of sale consideration. Earlier, the tolerance range was 5%. Last year, it was made 10%. Now, by the proposed amendment, the 10% tolerance limit is sought to be increased to 20%. But then again, I mean, this removal of the so-called difficulty for the real estate developer and the corresponding buyer now comes with a price, or is not without fetters. It's not without conditions. Conditions after conditions. Ifs after buts, and buts after ifs. Fetters after fetters, restrictions after restrictions. And therefore, now what is the first condition? That the transfer should be the transfer of the residential unit alone. So if there is unsold stock inventory of the plots as such, or any commercial property as such at the end of the real estate developer, then there is no respite. There is no removal of this difficulty. So the transfer should be that of the residential unit, and that too between which period? Between 12th of November 2020 till 30th June 2021. 30th June 2021 can be understood because that is the end of a month or end of a quarter. But then 12th of November, I mean, where from this date has been invented? Nothing is available in the public domain as to why this date or 12th of November 2020 has been kept. Yes, when I traversed back in the history, then I found 12th of November 2020 was Dhanteras. So, and I do remember it for the reason because that was the time when I and Raj, my partner, both were struggling in Medanta hospital from corona. 14th November was Deepavali. So 12th of November, where from it has come? I mean, nothing is clear. So there should be transfer of a residential unit. The transfer must take place between 12th of November 2020 to 30th June 2021. And this transfer of the residential unit must be by way of the first allotment only. If there is subsequent sale, subsequent allotment, then it's not available. And the consideration received as a result of the transfer of the residential unit should not be more than rupees 2 crores. So if real estate residential unit complies with all these conditions, then alone the tolerance range now would be taken to be 20% of the actual sale consideration. And if the stamp duty value is not more than 20% of the actual sale consideration, then actual sale consideration received would be treated as or would be taken into account for the purpose of computing the business income. And corresponding provision has been made in the hands of the buyer, because if the buyer buys some movable property for a price less than the stamp duty value, then the differential constitutes his income. So this is the second difficulty perceived by the government, which is proposed to be alleviated by this proposed amendment. Then comes tax audit. Tax audit provision. Now, section 44AB. If any person carrying on in business having turnover, gross receipts or sales more than ₹1 crore is required to get his books of accounts audited. No change in that. 50 lakhs receipts or more from the profession. I mean, no change in that. But then Finance Act 2020 increased this limit of 1 crore to 5 crores. Not very long ago. Finance Act, not even a year has passed. That this limit of 1 crore will be taken to be the limit of 5 crore if the aggregate of the cash receipts does not aggregate cash receipts in cash does not exceed 5% of the total receipts, and aggregate payments in cash does not exceed 5% of the total payment. And in 2021, the proposal is that this limit of 5 crore be taken to be the limit of 10 crores. And in order to promote digital economy, digital transactions, and to reduce the compliance cost for the small and MSME sector. That is what the memorandum's award objective, which has been spelled out. Now, this award objective to promote the digital economy is giving this impression as if the tax audit is meant only to have checks and control in a situation or for an SSE who is dealing in cash more than 5%. Whereas if we read Form 3CD, then we find that there are several requirements whereby the tax auditors, by sheer dint of his efforts, bring those facts on record in his report, and those inputs which are given by the tax auditors are used by the tax department for making additions and disalliances. Disalliance under section 40A IA. Now, 43B. Now, whether those SSEs who have got 100% transactions through the banking channel, now would not have the applicability section 43B. It will be there. Can there not be any disalliance under section 40 IA for such kind of an SSE who do their entire business through the banking channel? No, it will be there. Can there not be payments to the related parties which can be examined by the assessing officer in order to find out whether that expense which has been booked in relation to the related party is excessive or unreasonable or not? It can be there. Whether there cannot be any computation or depreciation in case of an SSE whose entire transactions are through the banking channel. Tax auditors compute the depreciation allowable under the provisions of the Income Tax Act in Form 3CD. 43CA, 50CA, computation of deemed dividend. Now, even it is difficult for the tax auditors to compute deemed dividend under section 222E to find. And by finding it, then he presents it on the golden platter to the assessing officer for making addition. Now, whether the applicability of the deemed dividend is not there for a person or for an SSE whose entire transactions are through the banking channel. So what kind of objective you want to achieve by saying that you want to promote digital economy? You promote digital economy. Everybody is for you. Everybody is by your side. Everybody is with you. But then the human service which the tax auditors do by bringing out all these facts and figures which are used by you for the purpose of making assessment, collecting taxes, do not hurt yourself. You are hurting yourself. Government, by making this proposed amendment, in a way is scoring the self goal. You yourself say in another proposed amendment under section 143(1) that if there is any income which can be deciphered on the basis of which can be discovered on the basis of the tax auditor's report, then computer can make adjustment. Now, what does it mean? That you also consider the importance of the tax audit. Now, on the one hand, you are bringing such amendment which shows that you value tax audit. And on the other hand, you are dispensing or you are doing away with the 44, I mean, you are doing away with the tax audit requirement for those SSEs who are having turnover of 10 crores of rupees if their digital transactions are 95% or more. So it is inconsistent approach. It is irreconcilable approach in this finance bill which needs to be addressed. Advanced tax installment 234C. I mean, there is nothing much, because if some income now which accrues or arises or received by a taxpayer after the dates of payment of advance tax, how can you ask him to pay advance tax for that amount? So, I mean, SSE said, sir, the dividend is taxable in our hands. Companies would declare, when would they declare, what amount would they declare as dividend. Now, you ask us to pay tax on that dividend which may or may not fructify. To what extent, what is the quantum which can fructify to us? And therefore, section 234C, I mean, requires amendment, and that amendment is proposed. But then kindly see, memorandum says that these natures, I mean, these incomes which are excluded from the purview of section 234C are because of the intrinsic nature of such income, because these income now, I mean, are unascertainable. So if somebody has started the business for the first time, say in January, then obviously the income which he would earn from January to March, I mean, can be estimated, and the advance tax on that income can be paid only on 15th of March. So there are capital gain. I mean, one may not know when he would sell, if at all he would sell, for what amount it would sell. And therefore, if there is a capital gain, now that capital gain now will not be taken into account for the purpose of calculating any interest on the deferment of advance tax for such installments, I mean, which have already expired prior to the date of earning that capital gain. Now, if you see, when they say the dividend, they say, but not the deemed dividend under section 222E. Now, what is deemed dividend? Deemed dividend is that if a company, which is a closely held company, gives loans or advance to a shareholder holding more than 10% shareholding, and there are accumulated profits, then to the extent of the accumulated profit, such amount would be treated as dividend in the hands of the shareholder. Now, suppose a shareholder of 11% in a closely held company having accumulated profit now is given loan, say in January. Now, could he have anticipated on 15th of September, or for that matter on 15th of June, or for that matter on 15th of December, that he would borrow, or the loan will be given to him by this company, and this company will have accumulated profits on that date? Therefore, on the one hand, you say that the nature of these incomes which are there under section 234C are of such nature which, by virtue of the intrinsic character of such income, could not be envisaged, could not be anticipated, could not be estimated. Whereas on the other hand, now you try to treat deemed dividend under section 222 differently. I mean, for no explicable reason. 1023C 3IAD and 3IAE. Any person in receipt of income from the educational institution or university, or from any hospital or from medical institution existing solely for the purpose of education or solely for the philanthropic purpose, not for the purpose of profit, if their annual receipts do not exceed the prescribed limit. And that prescription of that limit was given in Rule 2BC to be rupees 1 crore. Now the memorandum says that the representations have been received, and therefore this limit of rupees 1 crore needs an upward revision, and that upward revised figure is now 5 crores. But then this upward revision now is proposed to be made into the act itself. It's not in the rule, because Rule 2BC could have been amended by the board. But then this 5 crores limit now is proposed to be built into the section itself. Therefore, if in future, if that limit of 5 crore would call for a revision, then I mean, we'll have to fall back upon the amendments, I mean, which can be made by the parliament only. But then there is one more amendment which has been proposed. And the real import, I mean, we had not been able to decipher, and that is that the Karnataka High Court, in one of its decision in the case of Children's Educational Society, held that the limit of rupees 1 crore will have to be seen in with reference to each institution. So the proposed amendment says that the limit of 5 crores will have to be seen by aggregating the receipts of all institutions of that person. So if there is a trust, or if there is an institution, or there is a fund running several educational institutions, or running some hospital, then the aggregate receipts of all educational institutions and hospitals put together. Now, if it is within the limit of 5 crores, then they will be covered by section 1023C, 3IAD and 3IAE. Otherwise, and they will go in for the approval from the competent authority. They will have to go in for the registration. Now, one difficulty. Now, how can said be the removal of difficulty? And that difficulty is that the revision of return and the filing of belated return. Now, already the time limit which used to be there earlier, the 1 year from the end of the assessment year, now was shortened on earlier occasions by saying that it can be filed or it can be revised on or before the close of the assessment year. Now the proposed amendment says that we are further shortening that period by 3 months, meaning thereby the 31st December. Now you file return by 30th of November in case there are international transaction transfer pricing. Within 1 month, you are required to within 1 month only, till 31st December of that year, you are entitled to revise the return in case you find some error or omission. Thereafter, no. 31st October is the last date for those, I mean, who are covered by the tax audit. They could have revised the return till 31st of March following. They could have got 5 months almost, but now they will get only 2 months. Now, it has been my experience, and so must be yours, that errors, omissions, and wrong statements in a year's return is found when the auditors are doing audit for the following year. And therefore, I mean, to shorten the time limit of revision from 31st March to 31st December is not removing any difficulty being faced by the taxpayer, but then increasing the difficulty of the taxpayer. Employees' contributions for the PF and ESI. Now, we had seen lots of judicial decisions. In all these years, couple of High Court's decisions were against. Delhi High Court's decision in AML Limited, which I had got the privilege of arguing before their lordships. I mean, they explained as to why due date now as given under section 43B, that is the due date of filing or return, should be taken for the purpose of section 3615A. Now, with this proposed amendment, it is sought to be clarified that employees' contributions, if not paid or paid belatedly even by a day from the due date as prescribed under the respective legislations, that is the 15th of the following month, then the disalliance, I mean, will have to be made. So this is something, I mean, which we have not been able to develop. Dispute Resolution Committee. If you permit me, may I have water, please? Dispute Resolution Committee, as many as Dispute Resolution Committee now will be made as per the proposed amendment by the board as are required. And for what purpose? To reduce or waive the penalty or to grant immunity from prosecution in certain cases where these conditions are fulfilled. Now, what are those conditions? That it is applicable in case of those SSEs whose returned income does not exceed rupees 50 lakhs. So if there is an SSE who has filed 51 lakhs return, then he cannot avail the benefit of the Dispute Resolution Committee. The second condition is that the addition or the disallowance of proposed variation in the assessment order should not be more than rupees 10 lakhs. Now, DD sir, 10 lakhs rupees addition. Now, what is the tax? 3,50,000 rupees approximately, unless 115 BB is there. Even if 115 BB is there, then also about 7.5 lakh or 8 lakhs of rupees. Now you are pushing this kind of dispute resolution mechanism as if, what BIC has been doled out to the taxpayers. Then this assessment should not be as a result of search, should not be as a result of survey, should not be as a result of the foreign-based informations. We have already got section 270 capital AA, where the assessing officer himself has been given this power to reduce or to waive the penalty and to grant immunity from certain prosecutions. To section 270 capital AA, which was brought not very long ago in 2016, it was brought on the statute. It is there. The condition is that you should not file appeal irrespective of the amount involved. You pay tax within 30 days. And there should not be penalty for the misreporting of income. There can be initiation of penalty for the underreporting of income. What purpose? Our assessing officer is more powerful than the dispute resolution committee. Now, authority for advance ruling. हम इसको बोलते हैं AR, authority for advance ruling. In one stroke, this R has been sent परली पार. परली पार, डीडी साहब समझते हैं शेरगढ़ के हैं, मैं वृंदावन का हूं, यमुना के किनारे. हम कहते थे कि परली पार, across the other bank of river Yamuna. So R has been sent to the par, now has been replaced with a bar. And bar is not that bar which we often understand and which are open during the evening. Bar means the board of advance ruling. Now, earlier, authority for advance ruling used to be meant by a Supreme Court retired judge or the High Court Chief Justice, and therefore they were not under the control of the CBDT. Now, this board, which will be meant by the officers of the rank of the Chief Commissioner, now, therefore, that objective is quite obvious, is written on the wall. You want to retain and regain your lost control over the body. That seems to be the purpose. Otherwise, जो AAR नहीं कर पाया वो बोर्ड कैसे कर लेगा? If there were pendencies with authority for advance ruling, now board, now that is something which is very. And then one more amendment which is very important is this: authority for advance ruling की जो rulings होती थी, they were not appealable. But यहाँ ये कहे कि भाई जो ऑथोरिटी जो बोर्ड रूलिंग देगा वो अपीलेबल होगी हाई कोर्ट के सामने और 60 दिन में आपको अपील करनी होगी. इनकम टैक्स सेटलमेंट कमीशन, नाउ दैट कमीशन which used to settle the dispute now is struggling for its settlement. इनकम टैक्स सेटलमेंट कमीशन की ओबिचुअरी इस फाइनेंस बिल के द्वारा लिख दी गई. तुरंत कोई भी उनसे कहा गया है योर एक्शंस आर फ्रोजन, यू कैन नॉट प्रोसीड विद एनी पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस आफ्टर 1st of February 2021. कोई नो रीजन हैज कम आउट कि भाई ऐसा रातों रात क्या हुआ कि ऑथोरिटी फॉर एडवांस रूलिंग के लिए आपने कई कारण दिए मेमोरेंडम में, लेकिन इनकम टैक्स सेटलमेंट कमीशन से आपकी क्या नाराजगी थी इसके बारे में कहीं कुछ नहीं है. बस आप आज के बाद कोई काम नहीं करोगे. This is the proposed amendment. The Income Tax Settlement Commission now is going to finally rest in the grave.
सर जो उनका क्या होगा?
पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस उन्होंने कहा है which have not been declared invalid, then they will be transferred to interim board. Board under board. तीतर के दो आगे तीतर, तीतर के दो पीछे तीतर. Now there will be interim board. All pending applications will be transferred to the interim board. Interim board में कौन होंगे? Officers of the Chief Commissioner rank.
Okay.
डीडी साहब आप अपना कैमरा ऑफ कर लो क्योंकि मेरे मुंह में भी पानी आ रहा है. ठीक है ना?
जी सर.
क्योंकि फिजिकल हियरिंग होती तो फिजिकल होता तो हम आपसे
तो मैं लेता ही नहीं.
नहीं आप लेते रहिए, कैमरा बंद करके लीजिएगा.
ठीक है.
तो पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस यदि हैं और कोई एसएससी विड्रॉ करना चाहता है, पहले नहीं हो सकती थी विड्रॉ, बिकॉज सेटलमेंट कमीशन में एक बार हम एप्लीकेशन डाल देते थे तो आपको यूनिलेटरल उनको वापस लेने का अधिकार नहीं था, लॉ ये था। परमिशन लेकर आप विड्रॉ कर सकते थे, लेकिन यहां पर ये एक प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट ये है कि दोज पेंडिंग एप्लीकेशंस व्हिच एन एसएससी हु हैज मूव्ड वांट्स टू विड्रॉ इट, देन ही कैन डू सो विद इन अ पीरियड ऑफ 3 months। सो सेटलमेंट एप्लीकेशन, और ऐसा लगता है सेटलमेंट कमीशन को भी तिरोहित करने के पीछे जो एक ऑब्जेक्ट लगता है वो ये कि भाई कंट्रोल बोर्ड का होना चाहिए, सेंट्रल बोर्ड डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस का होना चाहिए, ऐसा लगता है। ट्राइब्यूनल, सोमिल ने कहा फेसलेस। अरे भाई फाइनल फैक्ट फाइंडिंग बॉडी है, आप इसको भी फेसलेस करोगे? इसके बाद तो हाई कोर्ट है, वो भी सब्सटेंशियल क्वेश्चन ऑफ लॉ पर है। आपने असेसमेंट फेसलेस किया, चलिए हमने मान लिया, हमने स्वीकार किया। फर्स्ट अपील की, हालांकि आई एम ऑफ द व्यू दैट इवन द फर्स्ट अपील शुड नॉट बी फेसलेस, because the things which you can make the others understand in any adjudicatory process through your personal interaction, now it is not that easy for that authority to appreciate and understand the issue on his own by breaking his head to the written submission of paper book which you file। आप अपने ऊपर ही देख लीजिएगा, आप किसी चीज को कोई आदमी आपको समझाए, आप 5 मिनट में समझ जाएंगे। वो आपको पोथी दे जाए कि आप पढ़ते रहिएगा, तो आपको 5 दिन भी लग सकते हैं उसको पढ़ने में, 5 घंटे तो लगेंगे ही लगेंगे। सो उस प्रोसेस में मिसकैरियज भी होंगे, लेकिन चलो वो भी हमने स्वीकार कर लिया कि चलो यदि कोई मिसकैरियज होगा भी तो उसको हम ट्राइब्यूनल में ठीक कर लेंगे। लेकिन अब ट्राइब्यूनल को भी यदि आप फेसलेस कर देंगे, which is the final fact finding body, and where you have got, I mean, paper books, very bulky paper books, then how would it be possible that there would not be frequent miscarriages in rendering the justice at the tribunal level? And I tell you, if there is a miscarriage at the end of the tribunal's level, then this is a quite expensive miscarriage for the taxpayers. Now, High Court, which are already under tremendous pressure and burden, now will further be burdened, because if there is a finding of fact recorded by the tribunal, now which is perverse, now that will also reach to the level of the High Court. Therefore, I mean, this final fact finding body should not be made faceless. दूसरा, एक कार्डिनल प्रिंसिपल ऑफ जस्टिस का कि जस्टिस शुड नॉट ओनली बी डन बट देन इट शुड।
हेलो हाँ देखते
दुर्गा जी
पहुंच गए ना
डीडी साहब, इसको आप साइलेंट करो। देखो आप, तो जस्टिस शुड नॉट ओनली बी डन, इट शुड appear also to be done, and therefore justice, when should it appear to be done? When it is done in the full public view, in the open court, which is open for everybody, I mean, to be witness to such proceedings. Therefore I have not been able to understand. सोमिल ने टच किया सर्च असेसमेंट। 31 मार्च 2021 के बाद जो सर्च होंगी या रिक्विजिशन होंगे, उनके असेसमेंट तो 153 और 153C में होंगे, लेकिन उसके बाद वो असेसमेंट्स नए असेसमेंट रिजीम में होंगे कि जहां सर्च हुई, रिक्विजिशन हुई और सर्वे हुआ, तो वहां प्रीसीडिंग 3 years के केसेस को खोला जाएगा 147 में, ये मानते हुए कि वहां इंफॉर्मेशन है विच सजेस्ट एस्केपमेंट ऑफ इनकम। तो जहां पर सर्च हुई, जैसे पहले 6 साल के केस खुलते थे, सर्वे में ऐसा नहीं होता था, लेकिन अब इस प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट में सर्च के साथ सर्वे भी लिपेट लिया गया है। एंड इफ देयर इज सर्च, देयर इज अ सर्वे, देन प्रीसीडिंग 3 years असेसमेंट नाउ विल बी टेकन अप इन 147 इनवेरिएबली। 3 साल से परे के केसेस जो होंगे वो डिपेंड करेगा कि डिपार्टमेंट के पास क्या इंफॉर्मेशन है सजेस्टिंग द एस्केप्ड इनकम ऑफ मोर देन 50 lakhs of rupees, वो उसके आधार पर। लेकिन जैसा सोमिल ने बताया, 31/3/2021 को जो असेसमेंट टाइम बार्ड हो गए हैं, हो जाएंगे, उनको इस 10 साल की परिधि में नहीं लिया जा सकता है, और उसके लिए उन्होंने प्रोवाइजो दिया है। यदि प्रोवाइजो नहीं भी देते तो ये एक लॉ का बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट प्रिंसिपल है कि यदि कोई प्रोसीडिंग मृत प्राय हो गई, इफ ए प्रोसीडिंग हैज बिकम डेड, देन इट हैज बिकम डेड, इट कैन नॉट बी रिवाइव्ड। नाउ रीओपनिंग के केस में काफी बड़े आमूल चूल परिवर्तन प्रस्तावित किए गए हैं इस फाइनेंस बिल में। और जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट जो अमेंडमेंट है रीअसेसमेंट के केस में, वो है रीजन टू बिलीव। एक फ्रेज होता है 147 में, आज की तारीख में उसको तिलांजलि और उसको तिरोहित किया जा रहा है, विच इज बीइंग कंसाइंड इन द डस्टबिन ऑफ हिस्ट्री। रीजन टू बिलीव जो फ्रेज होता था, बड़ा छोटा सा फ्रेज है, लेकिन उसके बड़े सटीक मायने होते थे। और इसको स्टैट्यूट में इसलिए रखा क्योंकि लॉ हमेशा ये मानता है कि जो असेसमेंट है उसकी फाइनलिटी सैक्रोसैंक्ट है, सर्वोपरि है। और यदि कोई केस को रीओपन किया जाता है, किसी कंक्लूडेड असेसमेंट को डिस्टर्ब किया जाता है, उसकी फाइनलिटी पे कुठाराघात किया जाता है, तो लॉ ये कहता है कि ये एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी पावर है। और यदि इस एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी पावर को आप इस्तेमाल करना चाहते हैं तो आपके लिए कुछ मानक दंड, कुछ पैरामीटर्स जो कि रीजन टू बिलीव के रूप में है, वो आपको पूरे करने होंगे। तो 147 होता था, हम उसको चैलेंज करते थे। चैलेंज करते हुए हम ये कहते थे कि साहब देयर वाज नो मटेरियल, or even if there is a material but that material is not having live nexus with the belief of escapement of income, now this check and balance, now अब ये समाप्त होने जा रहा है। this is not, it doesn't augur well, because after all if you are disturbing the finality of an assessment, then your action, I mean, should not be arbitrary. And therefore this reason to believe phrase used to act as a check on the possible arbitrary exercise of that power. So अब क्या है कि यदि कोई इंफॉर्मेशन है सजेस्टिंग एस्केपमेंट ऑफ इनकम, सजेस्टिंग एस्केपमेंट ऑफ इनकम, और वो सजेस्टेड एस्केपमेंट ऑफ इनकम यदि 50 लाख से ऊपर है तो 10 साल तक वो केस खोल सकता है। हाँ, प्रायर अप्रूवल ऑफ द स्पेसिफाइड ऑथोरिटी, जो पहले भी था उससे अप्रूवल लेनी पड़ेगी केस खोलने के लिए। और हो सकता है नोटिस देने से पहले असेसिंग ऑफिसर को इंक्वायरी का भी अधिकार हो, अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ हियरिंग देने का भी अधिकार है। और जहां एसएससी का रिप्लाई आया है तो वो ऑर्डर पास करेगा कि वो इस आधार पर वो समझता है कि ये केस को 148 में खोला जाए। तो इस तरह का प्रावधान। सो सर्च असेसमेंट्स भी अब 147 नॉर्मल असेसमेंट प्रोसेस में होंगे, एक्सेप्ट कि प्रीसीडिंग 3 इयर्स के असेसमेंट वो ऑटोमेटिकली रीओपन हो जाएंगे सेक्शन 147 में। देन चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट एंड इंस्टीट्यूशंस, इसके ऊपर चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट के ऊपर बड़ा प्रेशर है। एक तो इस बात को ध्यान रखें सारे मेरे मित्र कि सेक्शन 12AB जो फाइनेंस एक्ट 2020 से आया था, जहां चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट को री रजिस्ट्रेशन सीक करना था, जो कि जो एक्सटेंशन ऑफ द प्रोविजंस ऑफ एक्ट जो बीच में आया था उसके द्वारा ये 12AB को डेफर कर दिया गया था 1 साल के लिए। अब वो 1 अप्रैल 2021 से वो सेक्शन प्रभावी हो जाएगी। तो उसके जो भी रिक्वायरमेंट है, री रजिस्ट्रेशन आपने लेना है किसी चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट का, इंस्टीट्यूशन का, तो आपको वो सारी कंप्लायंस करनी होंगी जो सेक्शन 12 कैपिटल AB में है, नंबर 1। दूसरा, कॉर्पस डोनेशंस इनकम में नहीं लिया जाता, लेकिन अब कॉर्पस डोनेशंस को स्पेसिफिकली किसी एक अकाउंट में रखना होगा in one or more forms or modes of investment which is there under section 11 subsection 5। section 11(5) में जो भी मोड्स हैं, बैंक्स हैं, पोस्ट ऑफिसेज हैं, इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है, तो आपको ईयर मार्क करके कॉर्पस फंड्स को स्पेसिफिकली आपको 11(5) के मोड में रखना होगा। एंड इफ डिपार्टमेंट वांट्स टू नो, आई मीन कहां रखे हैं आपने, तो यू शुड बी इन पोजीशन टू शो सर दिस इज द अकाउंट, हियर आर द फंड्स, नंबर 1। नंबर 2, आप कॉर्पस डोनेशन से यदि एप्लीकेशन करेंगे तो जो 85% एप्लीकेशन की जब गणना करेंगे उसमें इस एप्लीकेशंस को संज्ञान में नहीं लिया जाएगा। हाँ, जब आप अपने करंट ईयर की इनकम से उस कॉर्पस अमाउंट को रीडिपॉजिट करेंगे, री इन्वेस्ट करेंगे, तो उस अमाउंट को एप्लीकेशन में लिया जाएगा। सपोज आपको 5 करोड़ का कॉर्पस डोनेशन मिला, आपने 5 करोड़ की बिल्डिंग बना दी तो ये एप्लीकेशन नहीं माना जाएगा। हाँ, लेकिन आप करेंट ईयर की इनकम से 1 करोड़ रुपए कमा के और 1 करोड़ रुपए को आप कॉर्पस वाले अकाउंट में आप यदि रेमिट करते हो, डिपॉजिट करते हो, रीडिपॉजिट करते हो, तो 1 करोड़ के बराबर वो एप्लीकेशन माना जाएगा और 85% की गणना करने में इस 1 करोड़ रुपए का संज्ञान लिया जाएगा, ना कि उस 5 करोड़ का जो आपने, चाहे आपने उसको अप्लाई कर दिया। दूसरा, चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट और इंस्टीट्यूशंस जो लोन बोरो करते हैं, उस लोन को बोरो करके आप अप्लाई यदि करते हैं और उस एप्लीकेशन को आप 85% में लेना चाहेंगे तो नहीं मिलेगा। उनका ये कहना है कि आप जब लोन को अप्लाई करते हैं तो भी एप्लीकेशन में ले लेते हैं, जब लोन को रिपे करते हैं तो भी एप्लीकेशन में ले लेते हैं। तो उन्होंने कहा यदि लोन को यदि बोरोड फंड्स में से या लोन फंड में से आप कोई अप्लाई करते हैं तो 85% के लिए उसका संज्ञान नहीं लिया जाएगा। हाँ, आप यदि अपनी करेंट ईयर्स की इनकम से आप जो लोन पे करते हो, रिपे करते हो, जितना रिपेमेंट किया है उतना अमाउंट एप्लीकेशन में लिया जाएगा। तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट अमेंडमेंट प्रपोज्ड है। और तीसरा, यदि आपके पास एक्सेसिव एप्लीकेशन किसी साल में था, मोर देन 100% ऑफ द इनकम, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डिसीजन के हिसाब से वो एक्सेस एप्लीकेशन वो सेट ऑफ हो सकता था आगे के साल में। तो इस प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट में उसको बिल्कुल मना किया गया है। 271 AAD आपको याद होगा, फाइनेंस एक्ट 2020 में पेनल्टी प्रोविजंस को लाए कि दैट इफ देयर इज एनी false entry in the books of account, there is an omitted entry in the books of account, then the assessing officer can initiate and impose penalty equal to the aggregate amount of such false and omitted entries. Section 281B, which gives power to the assessing officers to make attachment. But then that power is there only in case of the pendency of assessment or reassessment, not in case of the pendency of penalty proceeding. So the proposed amendment says that if penalty has been initiated under this section 271 AAD, then also the assessing officer acquires or would acquire the power to attach the properties of such person. Because उन्होंने लिखा है कि इस तरह का व्यक्ति अपनी प्रॉपर्टीज को डिस्पोज कर दे in order to frustrate the recovery of the penalty at later stage. Therefore, in order to protect the interest of revenue, the power of attachment of the assets of such person against whom penalty under section 271 AAD comes to be initiated, now that is proposed to be given. 143(1) CPC एडजस्टमेंट करता है, तो उसमें टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में एक्सपेंडिचर यदि कोई रिपोर्ट किया है डिसअलाउ होने वाला, उसके लिए तो प्रोविजन है। लेकिन यदि कोई इनकम रिपोर्ट की है टैक्स ऑडिटर ने, लाइक 41(1) की कोई इनकम रिपोर्ट की है, या 50C और 43CA की कोई इनकम रिपोर्ट की है, या 45 सबसेक्शन 2 की कोई इनकम रिपोर्ट की है, तो उसको प्राइम फेसाई एडजस्टमेंट में इंक्लूड करने का डिसअलाउ करने का कोई प्रावधान 143(1) में नहीं था। तो उन्होंने कहा है कि इवन इनकम now which is suggested by the tax auditor in his tax audit report now can be adjusted or can be made adjustment under section 143(1). इस तरह का अमेंडमेंट है। 143(2) जो 6 महीने का जो पीरियड होता था from the end of the financial year in which the return is furnished, now is proposed to be curtailed to 3 months. 44 ADA, तो यदि कोई LLP फर्म है प्रोफेशनल्स की, तो उसको 44 ADA का बेनिफिट अब नहीं मिलेगा, और बाकी कंडीशंस 44 ADA की कि प्रोफेशन शुड बी द प्रोफेशन इज रेफर्ड अंडर सबसेक्शन 1 ऑफ सेक्शन 44 AA, then your gross receipt should not be more than 50 lakhs rupees, you must declare at least 50% of such receipts as income, वो सारी कंडीशंस हैं। but then if you are a resident LLP, then the benefit of 44 ADA cannot be availed. Purchase of goods per TDS 0.1%। प्रीसीडिंग ईयर में यदि आपकी टर्नओवर 10 करोड़ से ऊपर है और इस पार्टी से 50 लाख रुपए का ड्यूरिंग द ईयर माल खरीदा है, तो आपको 0.1% in excess of that 50 lakh will have to be deducted. Now this is something, now I mean it was brought last year also, but then it came in the bill, but then in the act I mean, it was not incorporated, but then again, now it has been brought. Non-filers, TDS के केस में non-filers जो है, यदि पुराने 2 साल जिस व्यक्ति की आय पर से टैक्स कटना है, उसने पुराने 2 सालों में रिटर्न नहीं भरी है और TDS और TCS का अमाउंट 50,000 रुपए से अधिक है, तो उसको जो TDS और TCS का रेट होगा वो ज्यादा होगा, ऐसा उन्होंने ये प्रोविजन किया है। तो आप जिसका भी टैक्स कटना है तो आप सबसे पहले उसको पूछना पड़ेगा, भाई पुराने 2 साल की रिटर्नों की कॉपियां भेज, तो इससे ये परेशानी होगी। VSV एक्ट में अमेंडमेंट प्रपोज है कि यदि कोई सेटलमेंट कमीशन के ऑर्डर की वजह से कोई यदि टैक्स डिमांड है तो वो टैक्स डिमांड के लिए विवाद से विश्वास स्कीम नहीं है। जो टैक्स नॉर्मल असेसमेंट प्रोसेस के माध्यम से जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी अराइज हुई है केवल उसी को सेटल करने के लिए विवाद से विश्वास स्कीम आई है। इस तरह का स्पष्टीकरण इस प्रस्तावित संशोधन में कहा गया है। PBPT एक्ट में जो एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी है, एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी जो अंडर PML एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी है, वही अंडर प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट में वही अथॉरिटी एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी के रूप में कार्य कर रही थी। अब 1 जुलाई 2021 से जो सफेमा के अंदर कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी है, वो कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी सफेमा के अंदर जो अथॉरिटी है वो अथॉरिटी काम करेगी आपके एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी अंडर द बेनामी एक्ट। ये एक संशोधन प्रस्तावित संशोधन है। देन गुडविल पर डेप्रिसिएशन, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का डिसीजन था इस मिर्फ से सिक्योरिटीज का कि गुडविल एक एसेट है, इंटेंजिबल एसेट है, और सेक्शन 32(1) में हालांकि इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स में इसको स्पेसिफाई अलग से नहीं किया गया है, बट दिस इज ए वैल्यूएबल कमर्शियल राइट और देयरफॉर ये इट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स एन एसेट और देयरफॉर डेप्रिसिएशन इस पर मिलना चाहिए। लेकिन बोर्ड ने लेकिन गवर्नमेंट ने मेमोरेंडम में कहा है भाई गुडविल तो बढ़ती है, बढ़ती नहीं तो स्थिर रहती है, घटने का तो काम नहीं है, और फिर यदि घटती भी है तो हम डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं देंगे। इस तरह का, हालांकि उन्होंने कहा नहीं है लास्ट वाली बात, लेकिन इस तरह का निकल के आ रहा है। सो गुडविल पर डेप्रिसिएशन जो पास्ट में अलाउ हो गया है वो कैसे डील होगा आगे, उसके बारे में प्रावधान बना दिए हैं, लेकिन अब आगे से डेप्रिसिएशन गुडविल पर नहीं मिलेगा। इस तरह का वो प्रस्ताव इस फाइनेंस बिल में लाया गया है। 50B जो स्लम्प सेल का प्रोविजन है, उसमें स्लम्प सेल से क्या अभिप्राय है। जब स्लम्प सेल को, बिकॉज इफ देयर इज एन ट्रांसफर ऑफ अंडरटेकिंग बाय वे ऑफ ए स्लम्प सेल, तो उसको कैपिटल गेन निकालने का तरीका है जो सेक्शन 50B में दिया गया है, बट देन इट शुड बी स्लम्प सेल। देन व्हाट इज स्लम्प सेल नाउ हैज बीन डिफाइंड अंडर सेक्शन 2 क्लॉज 42C, और उस डेफिनेशन को हम पढ़ें, दैट सेज slump sale mean transfer of an undertaking by way of sale। तो बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट ने इंटरप्रेट किया कि इफ देयर इज ए ट्रांसफर ऑफ एन अंडरटेकिंग अदरवाइज देन बाय वे ऑफ सेल लाइक एन एक्सचेंज, तो दैट विल नॉट बी ट्रीटेड एज ए स्लम्प सेल। तो उस तरह की इंटरप्रिटेशन को नलीफाई करने के लिए सेक्शन 50B में ये क्लैरिफाई किया जा रहा है कि ट्रांसफर बाय वे ऑफ सेल का मतलब कि जितने भी ट्रांसफर के मोड्स सेक्शन 2 क्लॉज 47 में दिए गए हैं वो सारे मोड माने जाएंगे, और जो एक्ट में लिखा हुआ है ट्रांसफर बाय वे ऑफ सेल, इसका मतलब केवल सेल से ही नहीं है, एक्सचेंज, रिलिंक्विशमेंट, जितने भी तरीके के प्रकार दिए गए हैं सेक्शन 2 क्लॉज 47 में वो सारे माने जाएंगे। तो मित्रों आई थिंक अब 6 बज गए हैं और ये 3 से 6 की ही ये थी, और कोई प्रश्न होंगे तो प्रश्नों का उत्तर मैं दूंगा। तो यहाँ पर ही मैं अपना बजट के उद्बोधन को मैं विराम देता हूँ और विश्राम लेता हूँ। तो डीडी साहब।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सर। आपने आप उससे पहले भी ना बिजी रहे हो आपका डेलिब्रेशन पहले भी था ना। एक ये क्वेश्चन में आया है, शायद सोमिल के लिए था, वी डिपॉजिट एम्प्लॉयर एंड एम्प्लॉय कंट्रीब्यूशन टुगेदर फॉर ESI एंड PF, देन व्हाट इज द पर्पज ऑफ दिस अमेंडमेंट। In fact, employee contribution should have been covered in section 43V. इसका क्वेश्चन नहीं है, ये एक
तो इसको सोमिल बतलाएगा।
सोमिल क्वेश्चन बॉक्स में है, देख रहा है?
In fact, जो amendment आया है, if we
This is called employee contribution.
we go through the memorandum, the purpose behind this amendment is they're reading that courts have held employee contribution liable as reduction if paid till due to filing of return, as if 43B is applicable. So to block that proposition, this amendment has been brought कि 43B is not applicable. But once we, as the query is asking, once we submit employee-employer both together, and that too within due date, so this amendment is of no consequence where the person is concerned.
जी.
In any case, it is clarified कि yeah, you have to make payment of employees' contribution by the due date as per the ESI PF Act if reduction is to be allowed. That is now clear.
एक प्रश्न मैं देख रहा हूं विपिन आनंद जी का कि if the turnover is 8 crores, cash expenses below 5%, but net profit is 42 lakhs, tax audit required or not? देखिए इसका आंसर इस तरह से दिया जाएगा विपिन सर कि अब मैं समझ रहा हूं आप शायद प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट के कंटेक्स्ट में ये प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं। तो चूंकि आपके कैश रिसीट्स और कैश एक्सपेंसेस 5% से कम है, आपकी टर्नओवर 10 करोड़ से कम है, तो आप 44AB से कवर नहीं होते हैं। लेकिन यदि आपने आपकी इनकम चाहे 42 लाख की भी हो, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता और आपको टैक्स ऑडिट कराने की इस स्थिति में कोई दरकार है, कोई आवश्यकता नहीं होगी इन द लाइट ऑफ प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट। और कोई प्रश्न?
सर एक क्वेरी है नवीन कुमार जी की।
हाँ,
and he is asking, is AO of Delhi bound to follow decision of ITAT of Bombay on a particular matter?
हाँ, देखिए यदि कोई और ट्राइब्यूनल का कोई डिसीजन अगेंस्ट नहीं है उस प्रपोजिशन के लिए, तो ऑर्डिनरीली आई मीन इट शुड कॉन्स्टिट्यूट अ बाइंडिंग, बट यू कैन नॉट मूव 154 पिटीशन on the ground that it constitutes apparent mistake. No. Ordinarily, law of precedent says that if there are no contrary decisions, then the decision of a different bench, a non-jurisdictional bench, should ordinarily be followed. But then if there are decisions against, then he may not follow the Mumbai bench decision.
Sir, next question is Sneha Sharma ji ka. Ji.
Should we go for Vivad Se Vishwas scheme for depositing income tax on late deposit of employees' contributions towards EPF for earlier period, or we should wait? अब ये इस प्रश्न का उत्तर आई मीन बड़ी कैटेगोरिकल यस और नो में नहीं दिया जा सकता। यदि विवाद से विश्वास में आप जाना चाहते हैं इस वजह से कि यू वांट टू गिव क्वाइटस टू एनी लाइकली डिस्प्यूट, देन ऑफ कोर्स बिकॉज देयर इज नो कॉस्ट or there is no substitute for the mental peace. But then if you choose not to go in for the contest in the light of this proposed modification, which is there in the budget, in the finance bill 2020, now I mean problem I mean maybe there in respect of the delayed paid ESI and PF employees contributions.
ये तो सर असेसमेंट ईयर 22-23 के लिए अप्लाई होगा ना?
देखिए ऐसा कुछ नहीं कहा है उन्होंने ये कहा है कि असेसमेंट ईयर 21-22 से अप्लाई होगा, लेकिन यदि कोई पेंडिंग लिटिगेशन पड़ा हुआ है तो वहां पर तो ये कहा जाएगा कि साहब ये कहा जरूर 21-22 से गया है, लेकिन इंटेंशन को क्लैरिफाई किया है इन्होंने, एंड इंटेंशन वाज ऑलवेज कि इसको 15 तक पे हो जाना चाहिए था। ठीक है ना?
वो तो ठीक है सर, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस कर रहे हैं, जीएसटी लोगों को पैसा मिलता नहीं है, वहां पे इंटरेस्ट उनका लगता चला जाता है, प्रॉब्लम्स तो उनके साथ ही बहुत है बिजनेसमैन के साथ।
सरकार तो आपकी है,
सरकार तो सबकी है सर। चलिए एक ये जैसे मतलब जो 20-21 था वो तो चला गया बड़े रिलैक्सेशन में कि भाई अब कोविड हो गया, अब लॉकडाउन हो गया, एक्सटेंड हो गई, और अब नेक्स्ट ईयर से एब्रप्टली सारी चीजें जो है 3-3 महीने 6-6 महीने डाउन कर दिए, राइट सर? उसी तरह से जो भी ये 6 साल का पीरियड था उसको 4 साल का कर दिया, 3 साल का। तो अभी जो एक्सटेंड करते करते इनकम टैक्स वाले को पास जो पावर थी वो 31 मार्च तक नोटिस इशू कर सकते हैं पिछले 6 साल वाले, तो वो तो पुराने लॉ चालू रहेंगे ना सर?
31 मार्च 2021 तक असेसमेंट ईयर 13-14 के केस खुल सकते हैं, ठीक है ना। 13-14 का केस 2020 मार्च तक खुल सकता था, लेकिन वो 1 साल एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया,
एक्सटेंड हो गया इसलिए
उस एक्सटेंशन एक्ट में। लेकिन जो केस 31 मार्च 2021 को टाइम बार हो जाएंगे, वो केस नहीं खुल सकते हैं 1 अप्रैल से, चाहे वो 10 साल की परिधि में भी आए तो भी।
हाँ,
ठीक है ना।
चलो जी संदीप जी, आपके पास और कोई क्वेश्चन?
नहीं सर, अब कोई क्वेरी नहीं है। मेरी एक
पर्सनल क्वेरी है, वो पूछ लो, मौका है।
तो सी गोइंग बाय द वे एफएम जो डिस्कशन कर रही है, बजट प्रेजेंट कर रही है, तो शुड वी एक्सपेक्ट कि आने वाले 1-2 साल में टैक्स ऑडिट भी चला जाएगा सीएस के पास से?
इस तरह कयास लगाने का तो कोई मतलब नहीं है। कैसे कयास लगाने का मतलब नहीं है। अपनी लीडरशिप पे थोड़ा प्रेशर डालिए, जिससे कि सरकार से लाइजन करके और चीजों को ठीक करें। क्योंकि आपको देखो, मैं हमेशा कहता हूं कि आप स्टैट्यूटरी बैसाखियों के सहारे आप बहुत लंबे समय तक नहीं चल सकते हो। आपको उसकी उपादेयता, उसकी यूटिलिटी आपको बतानी पड़ेगी, प्रूव करनी पड़ेगी। अब यदि एफएम साहब को कोई ये बताए कि साहब टैक्स ऑडिट से ये फायदे होते हैं, आपको 143(1) के लिए ये मटेरियल मिलता है, 40IA 43B, आप एक तरफ तो अपने आप को सेल्फ असेसमेंट में ले जाना चाहते हो, ठीक है ना, दूसरी तरफ जो इंफॉर्मेशन आपको रेडीली मिल रही है अवेलेबल, उसको आप दूर करना चाहते हो। अरे कोई कैश ट्रांजैक्शन थोड़ी कोई क्राइटेरिया होता है ऑडिट और नॉन ऑडिट का। जो चेक वाले ट्रांजैक्शंस होते हैं, क्या वहां ये सारी चीजें नहीं होती हैं? तो ये चीजें आपको पुट फोर्थ करनी पड़ेंगी, आपको बतानी पड़ेंगी, समझानी पड़ेंगी, और ये बताना पड़ेगा कि साहब ये आपके हित में है।
ठीक है, आपने इलेबोरेट किया भी है वो काफी।
हाँ,
टैक्स ऑडिट पे तो, क्योंकि नॉट ओनली कैश क्राइटेरिया, ये जो डिजिटल पेमेंट क्राइटेरिया, ये अगर बेस है तो फिर तो वो कुछ भी कर लेगा।
मैं उसमें से कम 25 आइटम ऐसे निकाल दूंगा कि जो
बिल्कुल,
टैक्स ऑडिट
डेफिनेटली
कराने में
निकल ही
फायदा
जाएंगे,
होता है।
निकल ही जाएंगे।
अब हमारी तो कोई सलाह लेता नहीं ना इंस्टीट्यूट में, हमको तो।
एनीवे, थैंक यू सो मच सर, थैंक्स अ लॉट। बहुत ही बढ़िया प्रेजेंटेशन रहा सर। इट्स अ वेरी लर्निंग, वेरी नॉलेजेबल थिंग। मैं डीडी जी से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा कि सर आप बिफोर मूविंग फर्दर आप कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क दें, एंड विल गिव अ वर्ड ऑफ थैंक्स टू सर, प्लीज।
ओके, थैंक यू संदीप। मैं समझता हूं कि आज हमारा भी एक प्रयास रहा कि बजट पे डिस्कशन करें, क्योंकि सब जगह चल रहा है, ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल भी है, लेकिन जो फेस टू फेस, और मतलब राकेश जी का अपना इंटरप्रिटेशन, जैसे टैक्स ऑडिट पे बोला, ये एम्प्लॉय कंट्रीब्यूशन वाला हो गया, काफी सारी चीजें सोमिल ने बताई, तो एक प्रयास था, और मैं समझता हूँ हमारा 150-200 लोगों ने उसको वाउच किया है, तो उन सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और ऑफ कोर्स डॉक्टर राकेश गुप्ता जी तो हमारे बीच में जब चाहे मतलब टाइम निकाल ही लेते हैं, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। और सोमिल तो एक बढ़ते हुए स्टार स्पीकर है, प्लीज कीप इट अप सन सोमिल, बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत अच्छा है, आप बड़े कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ और आराम से बोलते हैं, अच्छी बात है, बहुत अच्छा है। तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स का थैंक यू, एंड सोमिल जी का, डॉक्टर राकेश गुप्ता जी का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। अभी फरवरी का हमने फाइनल नहीं किया है, कि हम सोच रहे थे सीपी डायरेक्टरेट से क्या इंटीमेशन आती है, लेकिन कोई चेंज नहीं है, तो हम जल्दी ही दूसरे वेबिनार फरवरी महीने के इस वीकेंड तक फाइनल करके आप सब पार्टिसिपेंट्स को बता देंगे। ओवर टू संदीप जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच टू ऑल।
थैंक यू सो मच सर, थैंक्स अ लॉट। बहुत ही बढ़िया वेबिनार रहा, एंड आप दोनों स्पीकर का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप आए और अपने टाइम निकाला, और हमारे फाउंडर कमेटी डीडी जी का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, थैंक यू सो मच सर। आप सभी पार्टिसिपेंट का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, एंड वेरी सून विल प्लान फॉर फरवरी वेबिनार, और हम प्लान करेंगे एंड विल लेट यू नो इन एडवांस। थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू।